emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 887.LV2525, certificate number 2504. Jesse Owens, gold medals of.
After the fanfares of the Olympic opening comes the most amazing performance by America's black streak Jesse Owens in the 100 meters. The world's most superb runner makes the others look as if they're walking, as he wins the final and equals the world's record time. This and his later victory in the long jump may well be the athletic performances of the century.
I like this new sort of card catalog way of coming up with omnibus entries.
Right, we should do it more. More commas.
Gold medals of.
We did a listener survey, and it turned out what people wanted was more commas in the episode titles.
Here, but no colons.
Oh, so tired of colons.
No, I do not want a colon in an episode title. 2 days ago, in the omnibus entry, The Hero of Camperdown, we talked about the silver medal that was awarded to
Jack Crawford, naval hero.
Jack Crawford, naval hero, that he ended up pawning because he was living as a somewhat, not destitute, but
down on his luck, working man
right.
in the north of England. Pawned it 7 times.
Pawned it 7 times and retrieved it 7 times, which...
Or at least 6.
Or at least 6. Pretty incredible record. But it inspired a recollection that I had about Jesse Owens, American hero and victor in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, shamer of Hitler.
Beat Hitler faster than Hitler. Beat Hitler at the 100 meters.
Faster than Hitler. Really like truly an American champion. So Jesse Owens ended up losing control of his 4 gold medals that he won in the 1936 Olympics. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Have you considered...
Have I ever won 4 gold medals at the Summer Olympics?
Have you ever considered selling your GOAT trophy?
I don't want to... Maybe I shouldn't give a heads up to any cat burglars out there listening. But the GOAT trophy, I am told, is 24 karat gold.
Is that right? It's not solid,
no,
plated.
No, I mean, it's a cheap hollow trophy body for one thing.
Sure, I've carried that thing all over town. I know how much it weighs.
But apparently, the metallic material is at least gold plated.
Is there a collector's market, do you know, for Jeopardy memorabilia?
I would say no, just because there's almost total lack of such.
You don't get a certificate or a little coin or anything?
No, I asked after that greatest of all time tournament, they handed me the trophy and I hoisted it. And then we had a second to take some pictures and I turned to Brad and I said, where do you put all your hardware? Because, Brad Redder's won 4 or 5 of these Jeopardy super tournaments.
Right.
And he was like, I don't have anything. They never had a trophy until now. I have one oversized check.
Not even a little medal or something.
No,
huh?
I think the college tournament has a trophy, but I don't know what kind of secondary market there is. I know for the Academy Awards, the Academy claims that they still own the statuette and are, giving it to the recipient on some kind of a lease or grant basis, which I guess gives them legal protection to step in if
you can't just take one down to a pawn shop and pawn.
If recipients
Oscar.
try to pawn or sell an Oscar on the collector's market, the Academy wants to be able to step in.
Well, the same is not true of Olympic medals and Nobel Prizes. These medals are Well, the Olympic medal until 1912, the Olympic gold medal was made of solid gold.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking about what would now be $20,000 or $30,000 worth of gold. After 1912, they started the medal's made of silver and plated with gold. But it still is.
Is it in most cases? Do you think the medal is worth more than it is? Is the medal worth more melted down than it is as a collectible?
No, the price of the medal in a gold medal is melted down is about $500 or $600.
So even if it's an archery medal from Helsinki, people still want that more than $500, $600.
They do. A silver medal is only $320 because it doesn't have that precious gold coating. And then a bronze medal is made of solid.
It's gold, but coated with bronze for some reason.
And it's worth $25,000.
It's a little lesson about life. The real meaning is on the inside.
No, a bronze medal is only worth $3.50.
Really?
In melted down metal.
$3.50.
$3.50.
I got $20 on me now. Would you give me 6 bronze medals?
Well, but bronze medals on the aftermarket.
Yeah.
It's really hard to gauge what an Olympic medal is worth because, of course, who won the medal, when and where, that all really factors into how much a medal is worth.
Let's think about what supply is like. There have been how many Olympic games now? Every 2 years since 1930. I think the first Winter Games was about 1932.
Yeah, but it wasn't always on a 2-year rotation.
No, it wasn't
every 4 years.
But it averages out to every 2 years for about 80 years.
There are a lot fewer
there's about 50
winter
Olympics.
medals than there are summer medals.
That's true. And back in the day, there were fewer events. But today, hundreds of medals are given out per Olympics. There's a few thousand medals out there, right?
Yes.
Just back of the envelope math.
There are, and most of them are family heirlooms. They don't arrive on the aftermarket that often.
It's got to be a grandson's drug habit.
Yeah, that's right. Or in a lot of cases, you'll see a medal when an Olympian decides to sort of later on in their career start a charity, and maybe partly that charity is themselves. But, medals do come for sale. There was actually, in the early days of the opening of the Iron Curtain, there was a spate of former communist athletes.
Does that mean the government didn't keep those medals? They actually let the athletes keep them?
Well, but athletes would sell their medals because their value, even immediately after the Olympics, was relative to their impoverishment was considerably more. A cyclist by the name of Zulfia Zabarova in 1996 kind of famously won a gold medal in cycling,
and an hour later,
as a part of a team, right? She won her leg, and actually an hour later, on her way to the airport, sold it to someone,
on eBay,
and got on the not even on eBay.
Not in '96.
Probably somebody standing on the side of the stadium.
That's how you get the best price, in my opinion. You got to strike while the iron's hot. People are still buzzing about that big cycling win. You want to act now.
But in 1996, it was the money was worth a lot more than the medal.
That's Atlanta. Imagine what part of Atlanta she is in. Selling a gold Olympic medal. Did you mention the Nobel Prize?
So Nobel Prizes are actually made of solid gold. And until 1980...
Well, it's also a healthy cash award.
It's a lot of money. Until 1980, they were made of 23 karat gold. And they are heavy-duty prizes. They're 175 grams. After 1980, they've been making them ever since out of 18 karat gold. So basically, like...
A little chintzy.
Yeah, a little bit of a sort of wedding ring gold.
Well, the King of Sweden can't afford 23 karat gold anymore?
Well, that's sort of what I'm wondering. But I mean, how much are you really saving?
Well, I mean, that's a case where the person who has won the Nobel Prize is already, successful in some career. Obviously, not every lab chemist is a millionaire just because they're at the top of their field. I'm sure that's money that comes in handy.
Right.
But it's not like an Olympian, and they have the cash award. It's not like an Olympian who is very young and has probably just achieved their greatest accomplishment on the world stage, and then maybe has not really thought about what their post archery career looks like.
Right. And with Olympians, and this has been increasingly true in the modern era, Olympians are all often offered very lucrative sponsorship deals after they win their medals. I have a friend who won some Olympic medals.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid growing up at Mount Alyeska in Alaska, I was on the same ski team as Tommy Moe. Mm-hmm. He was a couple years younger than I was. He was an exceptional skier. Actually, I guess he was just not even a year younger than me. I always thought of him as a lot younger, but he's looking at no, that's right. He's a year younger than I was. He was a much better skier than I was, even when I was 10 and he was 9. But he went on to win at the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer. He was the first American male skier to win 2 medals in an Olympics, a gold in the downhill and a silver at the Super G. And Tommy came back to Anchorage. He's only 20 years old at this point, or 22. Came back to Anchorage and ever since has sort of made a living as an Olympic medal winner.
An ex-Olympic medalist.
You never have to buy dinner again. Since he's moved to Jackson Hole and lives there as kind of a ski pro.
Well, that's the thing. Skiing is a sport that does come with a possible post-career attached.
Somewhat, right? I mean, it's already a sport that's got a lot of money that attends it, and a resort would hire you to just kind of ski coach and hang out. And
I mean, compared to being on the Hungarian
bobsled
handball
team.
Or water polo team or something, right?
And in America, there are a lot of. I mean, I think you'll see advertisements for Chevy trucks that feature a couple of Olympians sort of leaning on the hood, but there are glamorous sports and less glamorous ones, as you say, the shot put, and also it matters a lot if you are photogenic.
Sure,
that you're going to get endorsement deals,
and which sport it is. Yeah, you picture an Olympian, and it's going to be a gymnast or somebody very TV ready in one of the big sports who's a big hero. Michael Phelps type.
Right.
But for every one of those, there's hundreds of people who also excelled in their sports, but that are kind of labored in obscurity.
Right. Ski-jors or archers.
Rhythmic gymnastics. And they had their moment of glory, but it was basically an exciting school trip, and then real life came back. Model United Nations is over, ski-jor.
And you can see, I mean, for sure, there are gold medals that you can imagine are worth exponentially more than a standard one. The going rate seems to be $30,000.
Wow,
$30,000 to $40,000 for
any
a gold medal. Just a general gold medal, because a lot of gold medals are not. Nothing is engraved upon them. It's very difficult.
Oh, you don't even get your name?
Some gold medals are engraved with the winner's name. Some are not. Jesse Owens' 4 gold medals, for instance, there's no engraving in them to indicate which medal represented which victory.
He went by a table and they were like,
here's 4 of them.
Somebody shoves 4 medals at him.
The gold medal that Nadia Comaneci won in the 76 Olympics, which was the first perfect 10, you can imagine that medal is worth a tremendous amount more money than $30,000.
I was thinking Jesse Owens' medals might be at the top of theoretically. I haven't, there's no market for all of these, but what medal would you pay the most for? If it's a team sport, there's more medals, so that kind of clouds it, even if it's, the Miracle on Ice U.S. hockey team or whatever, there's going to be, I don't know how many people on that roster. There's going to be 25 medals. Maybe a big time primetime gymnastics win. It also depends on which country it is. America's going to have maybe a lot more gold medal buyers. On the other hand, maybe a small country where that was their one chance at fame. I don't know. Hard to think of something that would beat Jesse Owens' golds. Maybe Nancy Kerrigan's silver.
We have some data on this. There is a very small group of Olympic medal collectors. I think the people within the numismatic world and collectors world kind of have an eye on one another. These are expensive enough medals to own that it's less likely that a bronze medal sort of typically is in the $15,000 range, and that's it's not a thing that you buy to just as a tourist, right? But certainly gold medals, if you're paying $40,000-$50,000 for a Olympic medal, you're in a small group of people that are trying to put together a collection. Each year of the Olympics, the medal has a different design.
Oh, is it, so it's like people trying to get every year of the quarter.
I mean,
or whatever.
I'm sure there are people who aspire to that.
Because if you're paying $15,000 for a bronze medal, you'd think it would have some sentimental or patriotic value. You'd think
Right.
I don't just want. Maybe it is somebody who's like, I just want a Montreal bronze. They're beautiful. But it seems more like that if you're paying that much, it's like, this is when great Lithuanian javelin thrower. Sarunas Javelinitis, you have some connection to who the winner is.
But some of the medals that you mentioned actually have come for sale.
What?
Mark Wells, who played on the 1980 hockey team, suffered from a congenital spinal disease, and over time started to degenerate and needed money for his medical bills. And so in 2010, he put his 1980 hockey medal for sale, and it fetched $310,000 on the open market.
Was there any kind of shame? Not only shame on you for doing this, but shame on the establishment that let this happen? Is there any thought that it demeans the achievement if people can or have to sell these tokens of victory?
So he was not the first person to put his medal for sale, and there is a lot of feeling that it's deeply unfortunate that someone like Mark Wells would have to sell his medal, and it was an emotional experience for him. He told the story that in the months leading up to the sale of his medal, he slept with it every night just to kind of have it be with him as long as he could.
I want to buy it and give it back to him. I guess I missed my chance.
Well, so that in fact has happened a few times, as we'll get to in a second. And Jesse Owens' medals have reappeared, and one of them sold as recently as 2013. Jesse Owens' medals took a very convoluted path away from Jesse over the years. I
don't think I know a single thing that happened to him after he beat Hitler at the high hurdles.
So, our legendary story about Jesse Owens is that he won the Olympics. Hitler got up and stormed out of the stadium.
Just so future things know, he's a bad guy. We're not rooting for him here.
Hitler was bad. But in the aftermath of the Olympics, Jesse Owens reported returning to America, and he said that the story of Hitler snubbing him was false, that Hitler actually met him, congratulated him, shook his hand.
Yeah, I've seen that. Jesse Owens really stuck up for Hitler.
And he said FDR did snub him. Jesse was never invited to the White House. The president made no acknowledgement of his victory. When he returned to New York, there was a victory dinner at the Waldorf Astoria, and Jesse Owens was made to ride the freight elevator because African Americans couldn't enter through the front door.
What do we think about the FDR snub, that he thought it would be a lightning rod for controversy to recognize a black athlete?
Well, Jesse Owens was a lifelong Republican, and he reported that Democrats, which during that period still were, relied very heavily on a kind of racist Southern Democratic Party base that the Democrats sort of universally snubbed him and only later reached out to him during the civil rights movement to be a sort of, to be sort of lauded by the Democrats, and he shunned them.
What do you think the black vote looked like in the Depression era? Largely Democratic, right? By that time,
it wasn't the black vote; it was the white Democratic vote that was.
Right, I'm just saying how unusual would it have been for Jesse Owens to be like, "No, my family's always been Republican."
Oh, I think there were a lot of black Republicans during that period because during Reconstruction, the Republican Party was
sure a
lot more supportive.
But over 50 years have now passed, and now in the Depression, now you've got the party of greater intervention for the worker.
Right.
Like I assume it started to shift at least around then.
I think there is a lot, and I think Jesse Owens came from a Republican family, so he was certainly laboring under the "my daddy drove a Buick" kind of loyalty to the brand.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but his dad is Buck Owens from Hee Haw. No.
There is a funny story after it's not funny. There's a lot of tragedy in this story, but after the Olympics, Jesse Owens came back to a very segregated United States and found no opportunities for economic advancement. He sought sponsorships, and the Olympic Committee revoked his amateur status and sort of kicked him off the sports circuit, and he ended up traveling the country racing punters for $5 at the state fair and so forth. Like you could
a race with Jesse Owens.
You could race Jesse Owens, and he would give you a handicap. You could start 10 seconds before him. Or
do you pay more for a bigger handicap?
You start 20 feet out. And then eventually he was racing horses. He would do these exhibitions where he would line up with a racehorse and they would have a sprint. He said that the system he kind of gamed it because he would race horses that were, high-spirited thoroughbreds, and they would start with a pistol shot, and the pistol shot would spook the horse, and it would give him enough of an advantage. But there was, talk about the shame of selling your gold medal. There was even then a lot of consternation that this American hero, 4-time gold medal winner Jesse Owens, was quote unquote reduced to racing horses at state fairs. But Jesse Owens did not regard it as
to him that was
shameful.
That was show business,
right? He said that he had 4 gold medals, but he couldn't eat gold medals. Owens was an alumni of Ohio State. He had a lot of there were a lot of people that were trying to look out for him. He had a friend that got him a job as a band leader, leader of a jazz orchestra.
That seems problematic.
He,
so let me get this straight. You're black, right? Okay.
It was a black friend.
Okay. But even so, I don't know if I trust Jesse Owens' band leading abilities.
Right, but it was a time when, he put butts in the seats, right?
There's not a lot of, there's probably not a lot of job descriptions, even in show business, that would be open to an African-American performer.
Well, and he was also a great athlete. Although he worked at Ford Motor Company a little bit during the war, he ended up...
Was he outrunning Model Ts or what was
it was just a sort of like, let's give Jesse Owens a job kind of thing.
But he wasn't like a spokesperson. He was on the line.
No, he not on the line. He was like he worked in the head office, right? He was a personnel director or something. But during the immediate aftermath of the war, he got involved in the Negro Baseball League. He was a part owner of the Portland Rosebuds, which was a Negro baseball team
in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
I didn't know Oregon had did Seattle have a Negro League team?
I don't know.
I don't think it did. Portland Rosebuds
this was right after World War II, and then when all the white players came back from the war, that baseball league was disbanded. Right. And so it only lasted a few months.
It was the Seattle Steelheads. who played at Sixth Stadium where the Pilots used to play.
Right.
Now the Home Depot on, or the Lowe's on, Rainier?
But he was an owner of the team, but he would still kind of go out at between doubleheaders and race horses on the field, just as a way.
I feel like all sports owners should have to do that, even today. By the way, I looked this up. My intuition was not wrong about black voters during the Depression. FDR's election in 1932 was the first time, the largely Republican black voting bloc voted for Roosevelt 71%.
Oh, so for the first time it switched.
Yeah. So I guess it was the Depression that did it.
And this would have been right then, right? 36.
Yeah. So, but it wouldn't have been weird for a prominent African American to be Republican. It doesn't make him Herman Cain that he voted for Al Smith or whatever.
And in fact, at that point, it probably would have been a more mainstream position leading right up to that election. After the Olympics, Jesse did not put a ton of value on his Olympic medals and, in fact, gave one as a gift to his friend Bill Bojangles Robinson.
Really?
Who danced with Shirley Temple in all those black and white movies of the time. And just sort of gave it as thanks because Bill Robinson found work for him and helped him out. Bill Robinson, this is something I did not know, also was a athlete and for decades held the world record for running the 100-yard dash backwards.
Was it because he was the only one who had ever tried it?
He ran the 100-yard dash backwards in 13.5 seconds, and that record held for many, many years.
That seems good.
Pretty fast, 13 right?
13 seconds. I'm wondering what your form looks like. I mean, big steps, and it's just a matter of balance.
If you think about how fast you or I could run 100 yards backwards,
I think I'm going to be like at twice Bojangles' time.
Yeah, I might say you and I both would be working hard to get it in.
What about how about a
40
horse?
seconds.
How about a horse running the 100 meters backwards?
Oh boy, I think a horse would have a hard time running 100 meters backwards.
He can turn his head. He can see where he's going.
Yeah, but have you ever tried to get a horse to walk backwards?
All the time.
But then, and this is the sort of somewhat tragic part. Some years later, Jesse Owens had been living in a hotel in Pittsburgh owned by a man named Harry Bailey and ran up quite a bill at the hotel and paid off his hotel bill by giving Harry Bailey the 3 remaining Olympic gold medals and his participation medal in the 36 Olympics to pay off the bill.
2 questions. First of all, there's a participation medal.
There is, and there's a secondary market for Olympic participation
medals. Even
medals.
though there's hundreds of thousands of them,
and there are a lot. They're quite a bit cheaper.
Second question: he's a character in a fairy tale.
Yeah,
he stops at the inn. He's the doofusy boy in a fairy tale who's like, the innkeeper's like, well, I'll take all 3 of your gold pieces, and he's like, well, sure. I guess he doesn't seem to attach to them in these stories.
No, they don't have. I mean, there isn't a secondary market at the time, and if you think about their meltdown value,
I guess if that's what
the
they
40s, it wouldn't have been much to live on. They really were, in some ways, probably represented to him a little bit of somewhat of a complicated feeling, given that he had won these medals. He was universally a champion, and yet was living in a flophouse hotel and had to use them to pay off his bills.
In a segregated America.
Yeah, not a thing that he probably held up every day and felt an unmitigated pride.
And were they melted down then? What did Harry Bailey do? Well,
so Harry Bailey, one gets the sense that this hotel in Philadelphia was not, or I'm sorry, one gets the sense that this hotel in Pittsburgh was not the finest hotel, because Harry Bailey ended up pawning the medals to a pawn shop. And then while with the medals in pawn, he had hired a handyman by the name of Louis DeVito to do work around the hotel. And in partial payment for the work he did, he gave him the pawn ticket for the gold medals.
No.
And Louis DeVito, being a man that worked for a living, got the medals out of pawn. And then the DeVito family owned 3 Jesse Owens medals and his medal of participation. And the family kept them for decades, not realizing that they had that much value.
They just thought it was a funny story. People back then still must have known, like they're in newsreels. They must have known this was one of the most famous men of his time. How do you not understand that this is not a funny heirloom?
Well, that's the thing. No one had ever sold one. And so
I guess it's good. It kept them from reselling them to someone who eventually would have melted it down, right? At least they stayed on a shelf by the TV.
Right. And what's crazy about this story is that these minor characters, Harry Bailey and Louis DeVito, are playing a major role in the history of what is, as you say, the most famous of all gold medals. Louis DeVito and Harry Bailey remained friends, and after getting them out of pawn, he gave one back to Bailey as just like, here you go. Like I didn't want to get all of these. That medal is lost.
Because Harry didn't take good care of it?
Because Harry, I guess, maybe...
He probably gave it to his brother George, the richest man in town.
Right, sold it a second time, pawned it somewhere, and who knows where. It's like a coaster under a drink on somebody's coffee table right now.
Wait, how big are they? Isn't that gold medal like... is it the shot diameter of a shot glass?
No, it's bigger around than that. I mean, and they do vary from, but it's bigger than the bottom of a Coke
Sometimes
can.
they're the big. Oh, really? They're like this. They're about the size of a coaster, then maybe.
Yeah, a little bit smaller than your biggest coaster.
Huh.
Jesse Owens, at a certain point along the way, became he was. His many sort of failed attempts to become a prosperous entrepreneur. By the mid-'60s, the civil rights movement had changed the tenor in the United States, and Jesse Owens now was regarded as rightfully so, as one of America's foremost historical figures,
and a kind of a pioneer, African American pioneer.
And so the Olympic Committee started using him as a goodwill ambassador. He started to do events, started to benefit from some of the financial remuneration that sponsorships and whatnot.
Star Trek conventions.
And he actually petitioned to have his gold medals replaced because he claimed that he'd lost them along the way. And they did make replacement medals for him. And those medals are on display at Ohio State in the Jesse Owens Museum.
But these are replicas.
For many years, I think it was assumed that his medals were lost.
Was he cagey about like how he had lost them, or did he really say, did he admit that he had been complicit in the losing?
My sense is that he did not confess having given them to pay a hotel bill. And and so the medals were replaced, and I think Ohio State probably had them without shame, imagining that the others were lost to time. But in 2013, the medal that he gave Bill Bojangles Robinson appeared at auction and sold for $1.5 million.
Wow. So five Miracle on Ices.
That's right. Well, yeah, right. Five miracles on ice, as we say.
Of course.
And that made the DeVito family, of course, sit up and take notice.
What?
And honestly, I think the DeVitos did not know, the next generation of DeVitos did not really know what they had until the early 90s.
This is some Antiques Roadshow thing.
Yeah. When Granddad was like, oh, take a look over here in this box. I've got some Jesse Owens memorabilia.
Is Jesse Owens' Olympic gold medal worth anything?
But when they saw this medal sell for $1.5 million, none of them have any markings. It's impossible to know which one was one for the 100-meter dash, which was the 200-meter dash, what was the long jump. And I mean, I think you could probably put a different price on each of those if you wanted to. But the medal that the DeVitos sold only reaped $615,000. And I think part of that is probably that the Bojangles medal was the first of Jesse Owens' medals to come for sale, and at the time was the only...
At the time it was assumed this is the only one.
We didn't know that the DeVito ones existed.
And his has a better pedigree. It's been owned by another legendary, Black history figure for the 20th century.
But there have been a whole spate of Olympic medal sales. There are a lot of Olympians who think of the medal as somewhat like our friend Jack Crawford from our episode earlier this week. A lot of young Olympians feel like the medal itself does not have any meaning. They know that they are sports champions, and they hope to translate that medal into some kind of, in some cases, selfless benefit to other people. If you
like selling them to benefit a charity, or
Vladimir Klitschko of Ukraine won a boxing medal in '96 and sold it for $1 million to benefit kids sports programs in Ukraine. It was purchased by an anonymous bidder, and then the medal was returned to him.
Is this just a tax dodge of some kind?
Well,
because Klitschko is a professional heavyweight boxer. He's doing better than your average Olympic.
He's not someone that's
speed skater
that won it as a bicyclist and then sold it on the way to the airport. But that story, the anonymous buyer and the medal being returned, actually factors back in to our Nobel Prize story. In 2013, no less than the Nobel Prize awarded to Francis Crick for his co-discovery of and sequencing of DNA.
And he's the bad eugenicist one. I think we got this wrong in a past entry and said that Watson.
It was Watson, but
bad,
it was Crick.
Watson's the good American. Crick is the evil British one.
His medal went for sale, and his Nobel Prize, and sold for $2.33 million.
What? Just because there's so few on the market, I guess.
No one sells their Nobel Prize. And how many are awarded a year? You've got
just 6 or 7.
6, and then the Peace Prize is awarded from Norway, and then the prize in economics isn't a real Nobel Prize anyway.
As you often say.
Although, interestingly, this is something I didn't know. The Nobel Prizes are 175 grams, but the Nobel Prize in economics is 185 grams.
It's a little bit better.
It's a little bigger and better, even though it's trying to make up for the fact that it's faker.
I think it's because they know economists will be the ones who will be like, "Is this a little bigger than the physicist?"
Right. That's what they want.
They care more. Yeah.
But then a few years later, the Nobel Prize awarded to James Watson came for sale, and this was the first. So Francis Crick's medal was sold by his family. He died in 2004. Watson started or put his medal up for auction, and it was the first time that a Nobel Prize of a living scientist was for sale. I think what happened last time was that we said it was Crick and not Watson. We're making that mistake again. In fact, it's Watson who is the contemporary and vocal sort of racist eugenicist who has come out with this theory of a sort of bell curve like theory about
race and
race and
fitness and intellect.
Fitness. Crick was a eugenicist, but not a public one, right?
It's more polite. Here's the correction we got is that we accidentally said Crick was American and Watson was British. In fact, Watson had the worst views, but he was American and Crick was British. So we were corrected about the nationalities, not about their ideology. I see.
So Watson is American? Boy, it's really hard to keep these two guys straight, even though they're kind of a Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, we'll make a chart. Watson, American, bad politics. Crick, British, less bad politics.
Slightly less bad politics. Well, Watson, who is still alive, put his Nobel Prize up for auction. And despite being now a scientific pariah, his Nobel Prize sold for $4.7 million, but was purchased by a Russian billionaire by the name of Alisher Usmanov. Is that how you would say that? Usmanov? Usmanov, that's how I'm going to say it.
All right.
Alisher Usmanov, who is, one of these Russian billionaire oligarch
types,
who bought the medal and returned it to Watson, saying that he was one of the preeminent scientists of our time and that it was a shame for him to have to sell this medal. And so he paid this exorbitant price for it and then returned it to Watson, where I presume Watson sits on it while he releases these crazy racist screeds.
Well, who are these elderly men who suddenly decide they need $4 million?
Well, his public explanation is that he's going to donate that money or use it to support the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in Long Island, the same laboratory that he was suspended from as chancellor after making these remarks to the effect that blacks were not as smart as whites.
Well, that's nice that he doesn't hold a grudge.
Yeah, although you wonder if he really planned to donate that, or if he did in fact donate that almost $5 million to the lab, or whether he, I don't know, used it to buy Bojangles dolls? I mean, what?
Yeah, no. What's a 90-year-old man going to do with a few $1 million? What are his hobbies even? How many hot water bottles can you buy?
I'm not sure. Although a Nobel Prize, like an Olympic gold medal, as Jesse Owens says, you can't eat 4 gold medals, but also you can't really be buried with your Nobel Prize. If you die, it's just going to go to your ungrateful grandnephew.
And if you have more than one kid or grandkid, they're going to be fighting over who gets the medal. I'm surprised more haven't sold.
Some die and give it to the lab rather than.
Do you think I should put my Jeopardy trophy up on eBay and hope that some oligarch will do the buy it off me and then give it back? Like, it's a risk.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say, Ken Jennings, you live 50 more years.
That'd be nice.
Let's assume that no genetic manipulation has happened.
I just lived to an honest 95.
95 years old. You die. Now, Caitlin and Dylan are at that point going to be in their 60s.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to do with that dusty old goat trophy that's sitting next to the Lego Millennium Falcon in your sarcophagus?
That's Solomonic. You give one of them the Jeopardy trophy and you give the other one the Lego Millennium Falcon.
So which kid gets what?
Maybe there's like a snake draft for my possessions, like whoever.
But do you think one will prefer one thing to the other?
I honestly don't think.
Neither kid seems that interested in that trophy.
And that's right now. Imagine how much less they will be in their 60s when you don't care about anything.
Right.
Much less grandpa's old stuff.
People in their 60s famously not caring about anything.
They really don't. They're fine.
I wonder, I have kind of a little bit of the opposite problem. My daughter is the only child of this entire side of the family. And so when all the grandparents die, when her parents die, when her aunts and uncles die, all of everything goes to her. And
what a racket.
Well, I know. How dare she? Where does she get off?
What has she ever done? She should donate it to Cold Spring Laboratory. And that concludes Jesse Owens, gold medals of entry 887.LV2525, certificate number 2504, in the omnibus. Listeners, if you enjoyed anything of what you just heard, please do not take to social media with your responses. Do not go to @KenJennings, @JohnRoderick, or @OmnibusProject. Definitely don't send us email at omnibusproject@gmail.com. It'll just go to our heads. Don't send us your own Olympic and or Nobel Prizes.
What? No, absolutely do.
To P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155.
If you have a Nobel Prize and you want it to be carefully tended and cared for, dusted on the weekly, send it to us for sure.
Unless it's economics. And then John will just flush it on
well,
the
no,
can.
it's worth a lot more probably because it's heavier.
You should definitely not commiserate with your fellow futurelings on Reddit or Discord or Facebook about your favorite moments and jokes.
You're trying to chase
episode.
Everyone away from all of our social media accounts.
It's they shouldn't be on social media.
You're right.
I'm going to help them.
You're absolutely right.
Don't donate to our Patreon, whatever you do.
Well,
This is very hard. This one's very hard for you.
I mean, I get the theme.
I get it. If you want to contribute, you enjoyed everything you just heard, you're thinking, how can I contribute? You can, in fact, go to patreon.com/omnibusproject, become a supporter of the show, and enjoy all the amazing benefits that come therewith. I did everything then.
Yeah, I
P.O.
think so.
Box, I covered it all.
I think you did. Futurelings from our vantage point in your distant past, where Ken is, let's just say, he's probably experienced the peak of his glory, but I'm still pre-glory peak.
You're waiting on that medal or plaque at your birthplace.
That's right. Who knows the gold medals that I will accrue in the second half of my life?
You're going to cure coronavirus.
Potentially, I could shame it out of existence with my social media shame finger.
You're going to cancel?
I'm going to cancel coronavirus.
Hashtag
no
cancel
thanks. We have no idea how long our civilization survived or how much those medals granted to me are worth in your time.
Probably much less if they've lost all the cultural baggage that come with it.
Well, but we don't know if we've been elevated to godhead status, and futurelings that have discovered this are reading it like a kind of apocrypha, where they're like, we can't expose this Mary Magdalene gospel. It's going to throw the whole thing up in arms. We can't let people know that Ken is a real person. I
was thinking about how the future probably will not care about Nobel Prizes or Olympic medals, because they won't have any associations with, I'm sure the Miracle on Ice fetches more at auction now than some, the tug-of-war medalist in 1908.
This is a big question in the vintage guitar market. Eric Clapton's Black Stratocaster is worth a lot of money right now because the old boomers that love Eric Clapton and have millions of dollars think that it's going to be worth that forever. But if you imagine Father Coughlin's podium and what it would have fetched in 1945 versus what it would fetch now, probably a lot less relative.
The market really dropped in 1945 when World War II ended.
Anyway, we hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come, and that Eric Clapton's Black Stratocaster just increases in value throughout the millennia.
Exponentially.
And that Jesse Owens' gold medals, that the remaining two are found, and that they are, they become the kind of, what was the name of the satellite that returned in Star Trek 1?
V'ger?
It was V'ger, right.
Eric Clapton's S-Caster is going to come back?
The Jesse Owens' gold medals are the V'ger of our future times.
Who is Jay Wens?
But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may have been our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.